The problem with typefaces on the World Wide Web is that if you specify a font family and the person viewing your website doesn't have that typeface installed, they're not going to be able to see it. Now, there are a few workarounds and ways to make sure that this doesn't happen. The first is we could use one of the standard or universal fonts that most computers will have, but then everything starts to look the same or will just look boring in terms of typefaces. Second, we could use a technique called embedding, in which we embed the font file into our website so it's always available. Or we could use a font library like Google Fonts. Google Fonts is a catalog of fonts that is always accessible, at least to anyone connected to the internet. Google Fonts are free, open source, there's no limits on how we can use them. And Google Fonts will help make the web look better because they're providing a repository of different fonts, fonts that go beyond the standard or universal fonts. And generally, the Google Fonts that we use will load pretty fast, so it won't have any impact on our user experience. So let's dive in and look at the Google Font library and start using some Google Fonts in our CSS. The Google Font library can be found at fonts.google.com. It's a really nice interface that's searchable and customizable. At the time of recording this, there are more than 1,000 typefaces available. And you can click on any one to see the specifics and all of the styles available along with any special characters that are part of that typeface. Now, in typography design, we use numbers to refer to the different styles for a typeface. So for example, when we use the number 100, we're talking about the thinnest version of the font. And when we use the number 900, we're talking about the heaviest or the thickest version of the font. The regular version will use number 400, and then everything else in between will show you different variations in the thinness and the thickness. Now, to use one of the styles from this typeface, you're going to find the one you want to use and then click the link that says select this style. When you do that, a little drawer from the right-hand side should pop out for you, but if not, just go up to the top and click the little icon in the right-hand corner, and we'll be able to review which fonts and styles we have selected. So from here, it's a simple two-step process to be able to use this font style on our page. So first, we're going to click the Embed tab and see that there are two code snippets that we have to use in our files. The first is a line of HTML that we will copy and paste into the head of our HTML document. And then we can see the CSS declaration that we can use in our style rule to get access to this font. So the first step is to paste that line of HTML code into the head of our document, which I am doing here. Notice that it is the same element that we use when we are referring to our own CSS style. This is one of the elements that has an irregular ending, so we want to make sure that we end this one consistently with our space and our slash. The next step is to take the CSS declaration that was provided to us by Google Fonts and use it in our CSS file. In this example here, I'm just taking the paragraph of text and using that Roboto Google font. And there you have it. We can see that we have successfully implemented our first Google font. One thing to remember about the Google Font library is that if you are working with a font family and a style, and then later decide that you would like to use additional styles for this font, you will have to come back to the Google Font page and reselect those styles. So for example, if I would like the bold style and the italic version of the bold style and the black 900 style, I would reselect them and then go back to my HTML snippet that Google Fonts provides. And I'll now need to take this, copy it, and replace what is currently in my HTML file. You'll see this little snippet now not only references Roboto, but it's also showing us the other styles that I have checked off. Now that I've replaced the previous reference that I had in here for this Google font family with the new one, I'm ready to go into my CSS file and use some properties to get access to those other styles. So for example, I can use the property font-weight and specify the number of the style. And I can use font-style and set the value to italic for the italic version of that style. So here you'll see my Roboto is now the bold version, which is 700, and also italicized. Remember this and these two properties when you're working with Google Fonts, because if you try to specify a font weight or a font style and you did not actually select it from Google Fonts, it is not going to show up properly.